What is up, party people? We have a schedule. It is right there to my right. I think that's my right. I think that's how this works. I'm Jeff Nowak. I'm going to be going through some game by game predictions of what's going to happen when this schedule that we are got here over to my right, my left, whatever, actually starts. So if you want a full version of this graphic, which is a handy cell phone lock screen sized image, you can go over to WWL AMFM. I also retweeted it, so you can find it there. Feel free. I make this graphic every year exclusively so I can make it my lock screen because I find it incredibly convenient to have the schedule on my lock screen. And I figured if I'm going to do it for myself, I might as well just post it everywhere else. So if you want to go check that out, I find it very convenient. If you don't, either way, it's right there. We're going to be going through this in a minute. I had it scheduled for 7:30, so I'm kind of just going to vamp for a couple minutes. But this is an interesting schedule for a lot of reasons we're going to get into. I didn't go into this feeling super optimistic, but when you see how it all breaks down, I think you have to feel a little better about how things have shaken out. We're going to get into that, but also, I'm going to be doing this solo. But if you have any questions, comments, just throw them in the chat. I'll try to get to as many as we go along here. I'm going to kind of split it up into 3 segments the way we normally do for the podcast, Inside Black and Gold. I'll probably just kind of break it up into, let's see, 6, 6, and 5. Does the math work there? Yeah. 6, 6, and 6 if you include the bye week, which is week 11. So the first segment will be games 1 through 6. Second segment will be week 7 through 12. And then the third segment will be week 13 through 18. So we're going to get into that. But just kind of letting people join us here. And I do also, want to talk about the German non-game, obviously, because that's something that we talked about a lot in the build-up, and we should touch on again. So, I'm also, I happen to be wearing my Sean Payton Roger Goodell clown shirt. So, in case anyone was wondering, everyone tells me that I'm not sure what this question means. Everyone tells me that I don't wear any Saints gear. I got it. Even if he's not here anymore, it's here at heart is the Roger Goodell clown shirt. All right. So without further ado, it is 7:30. Let's get into this. Again, this is the raw version of the podcast. So we're going to kind of do the lead in, lead out. Otherwise, just enjoy the show. Leave a comment, leave a question, and I'll try to answer as many as possible. And obviously hit the like button, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, or to this YouTube channel if you're watching it on YouTube. All that good stuff. Anyway. And welcome in to Inside Black and Gold. This is a special NFL schedule release episode. We are live on YouTube and Facebook. Check us out over at WWL Sports on YouTube, over on Facebook, or subscribe wherever you get your podcast, because that's what we really like. I'm Jeff Nowak. I'm your solo host for the evening, and we're going to be going through these 17 games that were announced today. We knew the opponents. That's always kind of the interesting thing, is we know the opponents going in. It's just a question of how they kind of shake out, where the games are sometimes, which we did learn the international schedule, and I want to get into that first before we break down the games. I'm going to go through my game-by-game predictions, and I'm going to kind of break it up into segments of 6, including the bye week, right? So weeks 1 through 6, weeks 7 through 12, weeks 13 through 18. But first, the international schedule, which was announced on Wednesday, did not include the Saints, despite some reporting that was aggregated and talked about on this podcast from a German newspaper that falsely reported that the Saints would be facing the Patriots in Germany. And that's why I couched it with, we never know, because I think to some extent they were in consideration for that spot. Dennis Allen went on the Rich Eisen show yesterday and indicated that he did not think they were in the running for the Germany game But he didn't even know. The teams don't get the schedule until the schedule release day. And how it actually works is they have a representative who gets a call and they write down the schedule by hand. So when you're getting leaks, in a lot of instances, they're not coming from the teams. But that is part of the reason, like the schedule was very late to come out today, and they were very secretive about it in terms of we didn't really get the full schedule leaked for the Saints. Only a handful of teams, I think, had all of those games, and the NFL wants it that way, and they got it that way. But we're going to go through it. I've been able to break down, what I think about this schedule over the last couple hours. So we're going to get into a lot of that. But first, if you were wondering whether the coaches and the teams want to play in these international games, or at least the Saints, I think this answer from Dennis Allen on the Rich Eisen show is pretty telling that the team would much prefer to not have to use those passports.
There's a lot of nasty rumors out there that we were going to be going to Germany this year, and that was the, we were kind of under the impression that we weren't, but yet until you actually see it and it comes out, it came out today, obviously. So now we know we're not going to Germany. So that was a little bit of a relief.
Because it is obviously a European trip is significant. Is what you're saying, Coach?
Yeah. Look, last year was interesting because we were the home team, so we knew we were going to London. We knew that the game was going to be in week 4 or 5. Look, I felt like, that's early to have a bye week. And so you kind of get, there's a few options you get, you get a chance to say, well, we don't want to play this team over there. We get an option to choose whether or not we want our bye after that game or want to take the bye later in the season. And, knowing that we were going to be over there in week 4, we decided, well, look, let's don't take the bye. I don't really want the bye after week 4. I'd rather it be somewhere later in the season. And then when we get the schedule, the bye's in week 14. It's just flip flop. So it was like, God. But yeah, it's. I think it's good for the NFL in terms of expanding the brand.
Yes.
I do think it's difficult on the teams, not just the players, but coaches, staff, the equipment guys, the video guys, everybody that's got to worry about all the logistics of the travel that's involved in that. It's pretty significant.
Yeah, so I think the words you're listening to there and getting the clear indicator is they feel it is a relief to not have to worry about that throughout the course of a season. And it's really not that complicated why that is. It is such a big undertaking. The NFL wants it, so the NFL is going to get it. They're going to make money on it. But it is a disadvantage if you are a team going to London, going to Germany. The Jaguars always go to the designated home team. I think, if any team gets relocated there, eventually it's going to be the Jaguars, right? But, the Saints don't want to have to deal with that. Last year, he talked about they ended up with a week 14 bye because they didn't want to take a week 5 bye. Well, I think if you, all things being equal, you would have preferred the week 5 bye, knowing that going 14 weeks without a bye week is rough. This year, they got a week 11 bye, so that's kind of splitting the difference. But all right, let's go into the first 6 games here. And one of the things that is notable about the Saints not getting that Germany game is that game that they were reported to be playing would have been against the Patriots. Well, since that game was not in Germany, there was the potential for that to be a cold weather game. That will not be the case. As you can see on the schedule, or as I will read to you, let's read through it. Week 1 versus the Titans. Week 2 at the Panthers. Week 3 at Packers. Week 4 against the Bucks at the Superdome. Week 5 on the road against the Patriots. Week 6 on the road against the Texans. Week 7 Thursday Night Football, home against the Jaguars. Week 8 on the road against the Colts. Week 9 at home against the Bears. Week 10 on the road against the Vikings. A Week 11 bye. Then Week 12 on the road against the Falcons. Week 13, 14, and 15 all at home. You have the Lions, then the Panthers, then the Giants. And then Week 16, Week 17 at home, at the Rams, at the Bucks. And then the final game is on the road against the Falcons. I'm sorry, at home against the Falcons. And you look at that and you say, okay, 4 of your final 6 games at home, 4 of your first 6 games on the road. You got to figure it out, and you got to find ways to win those games early. As Demetrius James here points out, no cold weather games. So you have the Packers in week 3. That was one of your games that could have potentially been a cold weather game had it come at the end of your schedule. That is not the case. Week 5 at the Patriots. Again, not going to be a cold weather game. It'll be colder than it is in New Orleans, but it'll probably be a nice, pleasant temperature in week 5, October 1st when the Saints get out there. So that is an advantage. And so after going through that, let me just flash up my game-by-game predictions for the Saints this season. Just give me a second as I share this screen. And get it zoomed in so you can see it. Doing this live, people. We're doing this live. There we go. That's better. All right. So as you can see, I've had some time to go through this. I've been looking at the schedule for about 2 hours, right? Kind of going through it. We got some of the leaks earlier in the day, but a majority of the games didn't come through until the end. But as you can see here, I have a post up on WWL.com. If you want to read it, you want to follow along, go check it out. It is just game-by-game predictions starting with week 1, and it's going to be the Titans at the Saints. So this is an interesting game to me in the sense that you rebuilt the interior of your defensive line, and you do not have much time to acclimate to that new group before you have to deal with probably the most difficult challenge in the NFL when it comes to running the football, and that is Derrick Henry. And so, yeah, Nathan Shepard, Colin Saunders, Brian Brzee, what do you got? Derrick Henry's going to be trying to plow himself down your throat from week 1. I think they're going to hold up well. I think this game is the first game of the Derek Carr era. It's going to be hot in the Superdome. Everyone's going to be into it. I think the energy there is going to be tough to match from the Titans. You also have Tajay Spears on that side of the ball. I don't know how much action he'll get in his rookie debut, but it is kind of fun to see Tajay Spears making his NFL debut at the Superdome. Obviously start at Tulane. A lot of people would have liked to see the Saints draft Tajay Spears. They did not do it, and he's going to get a chance to exact some revenge early on in his career. He did want to come here. He's a New Orleans kid. He loved Reggie Bush. He grew up idolizing Reggie Bush. So that'll be interesting to see. I do have the Saints winning this game 21-20. I think it's going to be close. One of the key questions that we just don't have an answer to right now, do you have Alvin Kamara for this game? When he gets suspended is such an important part of this equation, and we just don't know. Is it going to be the first 6 weeks? Is it going to be the middle 6 weeks? Is it going to come in week 4 and then just kind of muddle up the middle of the season? I don't know. I am expecting him to be out weeks 1 through 6. It's still tough. I think the Saints find a way in this game to get it done. They've struggled early in seasons prior to this, and I'm just not sure. Moving forward, so they're going to start. I have them starting 1-0. Moving forward, week 2, Monday Night Football. So you have a little bit of an extra week, or you have an extra day to kind of get sorted out here, and then you face the Panthers. Now, again, and this is going to be a theme over the first half of this schedule, there's so many questions about who you might end up facing in these matchups. Is it Bryce Young, right? Do the Panthers feel comfortable enough to throw Bryce Young in there in week 1 or week 2? Or is it still Andy Dalton? And either way, it's going to be a fascinating matchup for the Saints, but it's one that I think they're going to win. Because I just don't think Andy Dalton has enough to get it done. I didn't think he had enough to get it done here last year. I don't think he has enough to get it done in Carolina. And if it's Bryce Young, I feel comfortable with that too, because as good as Bryce Young is, and I think Bryce Young will be, he will not be ready to compete at an NFL level in week 2. And if you put him in there right out of the cannon, he's going to struggle. And it'll be good struggles, right? Like he will improve, but he's going to struggle if you try to go to him right out of the gate. So I have the Saints winning that game 24-12, starting 2-0. And there's the theme. Saints at Packers. Again, another quarterback who I just don't have any idea how to project in Jordan Love. Is he going to show up kind of like Aaron Rodgers, where he had a couple years to learn and then he hit the ground running? I don't think so. I don't think the Packers moved on from Aaron Rodgers because they thought, oh, Jordan Love is clearly the guy. Otherwise, they would have done that last year. They brought Aaron Rodgers back on a massive contract. It doesn't scream, oh, we're comfortable, we're ready to go to Jordan Love. So week 3, maybe week 10, week 12, I would feel differently about this. Maybe if it was cold, I would feel differently about this. But I kind of see the Saints just feasting on 2 young quarterbacks here, or feasting on a veteran quarterback named Andy Dalton and a Jordan Love in this matchup. I just have a difficult time seeing the defense get flummoxed by Jordan Love at this point in his career. But we will find out. And so I have them starting 3-0. And if you're wondering how long it has been since the Saints started 3-0, 2013. Think about that. Think about how good this team has been. They had Drew Brees over a majority of that time. They haven't started 3-0 in a decade. And I do think that it's going to change this year because of the way the schedule sets up. And I do think they have gotten the advantage of that. And you look at week 4. If the Saints can't sweep the Bucs this year, you're in trouble, right? Whether it's Kyle Trask or Baker Mayfield, this team is not built to win right now. They're built to win next year when they get Caleb Williams, right? And so I don't have any concern about this game either. And it's weird because I went into this being like, I don't feel that optimistic. Vegas gave them a 9.5 over under on the win total. It's close, but I still have them starting 4-0, and it's because I just don't see the competition being there on the opponent side, right? I have them winning against the Bucs 28-3. It's just kind of a holding opponents to 3 points in Florida is kind of their favorite tradition of late, and I think they're going to do it again. And I just don't think the Bucs are going to win many games, and this isn't one of them. So you start 4-0. I like it. Week 5, this is where I think the Saints stumble a bit. They're going to go on the road. They're going to face the Patriots, a team that is going to try to run the ball down their throat. It's going to really, really give you a stiff test of, just like the Titans in week 1, how well is your rebuilt defensive line going to hold up? Not only in difficult matchups, but over the course of the season. We are a month in now. You've had chances to make adjustments. Ideally, I think you're going to work Brian Brzee into the fold a little slowly. I think you're going to start with Nathan Shepard and Colin Saunders getting the bulk of the action and Brzee getting rotational work. And by week 5, I'd like to see him getting a little more 3-down work. The other question to me is, how does Peyton Turner hold up? I think his run support play, his run defense has been the weakest part of his game. And this is going to be the game that they just run at him just relentlessly and see, okay, can you do it? And I think they get taken for a ride a bit here. I have them losing 31-24, first loss of the season in week 5, but you still feel good about that. Week 6, Saints at Texans. I don't know what to think about the Texans. I'm kind of still in that mold of they're not ready to win, and they've been bad for so long. You're going on the road. I like CJ Stroud. I think he's going to be a good quarterback. I don't know if he has it right now, but I think this is going to be a game where you see the vision for CJ and the Texans, and there might be 1 year away, but you can see it kind of building, kind of like the Panthers, right? Like, I think you're going to catch the Panthers this season, but you're going to walk away from that being like, that team's going to be dominating the NFC South in 2 years when Bryce Young is ready to go and some of these young players have developed, just not this year. And I think that's true for the Texans as well. But I have the Saints winning this game 28-24, starting 5-1. Now, week 7, and the way we talk about the Texans is the way I would have talked about the Jaguars last year, the year before that, where you have Trevor Lawrence and you feel comfortable about what he can do, but they weren't ready to win yet. I think this is the year the Jaguars They made the playoffs last year. They sneaked in the back door. I think this is the year that they win double-digit games and really kind of put their stamp on the AFC South. It's a short week for the Saints. I've always felt like the veteran teams are going to struggle a little bit more on the short weeks because older guys need longer to recover, right? Like, it's not that complicated. The younger teams in the NFL will have an easier time bouncing back 4 days after playing a tough game. And I think the Jaguars definitely qualify as the younger team in this matchup. I think Trevor Lawrence is really coming into his own. And I think the Saints struggle on offense in this game. I have the Jaguars winning at 17-14. Saints drop to 5-2. Still feel good about it, right? All right. Moving on, week 8, Saints at Colts. I'm probably holding Jeff Saturday a bit too much against the Saints here. Actually, hold on. I meant to go to break after week 6. So let's go to break now. After week 7, we're going to come back. We're going to talk about weeks 8 through 12. And then we're going to close out the rest of the season and going to give my final thoughts. This is Inside Black and Gold. Thanks for everyone who's checking it out. Leave a comment, leave a question, and we'll get to it in the back half. As always, hit the subscribe button wherever you get your podcasts. Hit me up on Twitter at Jeff_Nowak. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you want to see anything on these episodes that we might not be doing. I always appreciate commentary, suggestions, all of that. So we'll be right back. Keep it locked on Inside Black and Gold. And we're back here on Inside Black and Gold. We're going through the Saints 2023 schedule. I'm Jeff Nowak. Make sure to hit the subscribe button, leave a rating, leave a review wherever you get your podcast. If you haven't subscribed to this channel yet, do that. WWL Sports. Follow us on Twitter at WWLAMFM. You can check out Sports Talk 4 to 8 p.m. every day on WWL AM 870 FM 105.3 and the Odyssey app. I apologize if you keep hearing dings. I don't know why everyone decided to text me at this moment, but they did. It's probably because the Celtics are playing and everyone knows that I enjoy watching the Celtics. But either way, we're going to go back. We're going to get through the Saints schedule. We're starting here in the second segment on week 8. The Saints have started 5-2. They are going on the road to face the Colts. As you've seen, I don't even, like, how do I mute this? Jesus. As you've seen thus far, the Saints have faced a lot of young quarterbacks. You don't really know what to expect, right? But the Colts are an interesting question. I don't know what to expect out of Shane Steichen. I don't know if they're going to go to Anthony Richardson right off the bat. I don't know if they're going to go with Gardner Minshew. There's a lot of questions to be answered there. They were a bad football team last year. They had one of the worst collapses you've ever seen in NFL history. Matt Ryan led another one. I don't know, but I do think this is a game that the Saints, you've lost two out of 3 games. You're coming back. This is a game you win. I have them winning 24-21. If you can bottle up Jonathan Taylor, I think you can beat the Colts, especially even if they have Anthony Richardson in there. Again, you're talking about a guy who I don't know if is ready to win at the NFL level yet. Even if you think he's going to be a star down the road, look at the quarterbacks that come in as rookies and are successful. They are very few and far between. And they are almost never a guy who is at the developmental stage of an Anthony Richardson, right? Like an Andrew Luck came in and dominated right away. A Robert Griffin III came in and dominated right away. I don't see that happening for the Colts here. And so I have the Saints going to 6-2. And if you're thinking, wow, this is kind of ridiculous that they're at 6-2, I agree with you. I didn't expect to have them at 6-2, 8 games into the season. It's just how it's lined up. There's a lot of wins on this schedule, and there are no schedule losses, at least other than the Thursday night games, of which you have 2. You don't have any Sunday night games, but you have 1 Monday night game. All right, going forward, week 9, Bears coming to visit the Saints. And I think this is an example of, man, the Superdome advantage the Saints enjoyed for so many years, it doesn't feel the same. It didn't feel the same last year. It didn't feel the same the year before that. And I think the Bears are going to come in and beat the Saints in a game the Saints should win. for a few reasons. I have the score 24-21 on the Bears side. And it's going to be because, like, you look at Anthony Richardson right now, and you're saying, okay, well, how can he develop into a quarterback that's going to beat the Saints? It's going to do things that they can't stop. And it's going to be because he turns into Justin Fields 2 years from now. Because I think if the Saints had faced Justin Fields last year, even, they would have had a much better shot. I think he's getting better. He's getting better. And he is now the quarterback that the Saints can't stop. He is now like the Lamar Jackson mold of, they're just going to be chasing him around all day. He's going to be running them ragged, and it's going to look ugly. The wild card for the Saints this year is going to be, can the Derek Carr offense possess the ball the way that the Saints haven't been able to do in the past few seasons? And I think if you can do that, it makes your job on defense a lot easier. But I think in this game, the Bears are going to dominate time of possession. Justin Fields is going to be running you ragged. You're still not athletic enough on the defensive line to chase guys around the way you need to. And I think the Bears take this game. Saints fall to 6-3. Moving on to week 10. This is another one that's a toss-up for me. If this was at the Superdome, I would feel differently about it. Going up to Minnesota, that is a tough trip. You know, it's a tough place to play. The crowd's going to be hot. There's a lot of juice in this rivalry for teams that don't play each other that often. Obviously, you played in London last year. The Vikings got the better of that. I think this is going to be high scoring one way or the other. And the question is going to be, can Marshawn lock up Justin Jefferson, right? Can the Saints cover Jordan Addison? Can the Saints contain Dalvin Cook? And the answer last year, at least on the Justin Jefferson end of it, was no. He torched Marshawn Lattimore in ways that you don't see very often. And it makes you wonder, okay, is this a matchup that just he does not fare well in? And I think it might be. I think Marshawn Lattimore, when he's able to lock guys down, often it is the bigger body X receivers, the Mike Evanses, right? The DK Metcalfs, guys who you can be physical with and aren't just going to try to finesse you open. And that's what Justin Jefferson does. He can be physical, but he's just a route running machine. And I think last year it got the better of Marshawn. If he can learn from that and lock him down this year, then I feel completely differently about this game. But until I see it, I'm not going to just assume it's going to happen. So I have the Vikings taking this game 30-24. And this is where the schedule is starting to turn on you. You dropped to 6-4. You go to the bye on a 2-game losing streak, and it doesn't get better because you come out of it and you face the Falcons, a team that I don't think is going to win a ton of games this year, but a team that I think is going to get up for the Saints. I don't know how they're going to defend Bijan Robinson. I don't know how much the Falcons are going to incorporate Bijan Robinson as a rookie, if he's going to be the workhorse, if he's going to work into a rotation with Tyler Algier and Cordell Patterson. I don't know, but I do know that this is going to be a game that the Falcons go all out in. Grady Jarrett has been eating Cesar Ruiz's lunch for a couple years now. If the Saints are dealing with injuries and they don't get up for this game the way they should, I think the Falcons steal this game. Emphasis on steal, but it's also the Saints' third loss in a row, and it drops them to 6-5. So after a really, really good, compelling start to this season, you have fallen off a cliff. How do you get back? How do you get back? And that's what we're going to go to a break, and we're going to come back for the final 6 weeks of the season. Sitting at 6-5, who knows who you're going to face on the Falcons, if it's going to be Taylor Heineke, if it's going to be Desmond Ridder. Either way, this is the point in the season where you either put up or shut up, because if this season goes downhill the way it could from 6-5, you got a lot of difficult questions to answer. But we're going to come back. We're going to see how the rest of it goes. I'm Jeff Nowak. This is Inside Black and Gold. Stick around. And we're back on Inside Black and Gold. I am Jeff Nowak. We are going through the Saints 2023 schedule game by game. I made predictions for every game. I'm sure they're going to be wrong. It started out so well, 6-2. You're feeling great in a weak NFC South. Man, that feels like a dominating start. 3-game losing streak, get back to 6-5, and that's where you get it. You've had your bye at week 11, and now suddenly you're facing the Lions. You're hosting the Lions. Dan Campbell and his kneecap biting little kittens are coming into town, and this is a game you got to win. You got to find a way to win. And who's the X factor in this game? Hopefully Alvin's there, right? But I think one of the differences in this game is going to be Jamal Williams. It's going to be the energy he brings. It's kind of like, the Saints beat the Eagles last year in Philadelphia. And even without Jalen Hurts, I think if CJ Gardner-Johnson is on the field for that game, it goes differently. Your emotional leaders kind of lift you during those moments. And I think that's what's going to happen for this game. Jamal's going to not allow anyone to come out flat for this game. And I think he's going to dominate. And it's going to be interesting. Amon-Ra St. Brown is incredible. I've loved him ever since he was at USC. I wanted the Saints to draft him. They didn't. He's starring for the Lions. Jahmyr Gibbs, they reached for him hard in this draft at number 12. But if he is what they hope he is, then it was a good pick. And so this is a team that, they finished 9-8 last year. They're going to try to take that next step. But they still have Jared Goff as their quarterback. And I think the Saints know how to handle Jared Goff. I think they win this game. I think they find a way. Saints 30, Lions 27. The offense kind of wakes up at the right time. I still think the Lions defense is the weak point, and you exploit that. Saints get off the schneid, climb to 7-5, and you feel a whole lot better going into your last 5 games. All right. Week 14, Panthers at Saints. My guess here is you faced Andy Dalton in week 2, because I think the Panthers understand where they are as an organization and know that this is not the year you have to make the playoffs at the expense of your young quarterback's confidence, even if he was picked number 1 overall. Could be wrong, but you brought in Andy Dalton for a reason. I think it's to start the first few games of the season, see how things go, and go from there. Week 14, I would be stunned if Bryce Young is not the quarterback. I kind of look at it like when the Giants brought in Eli Manning, Kurt Warner was that guy, right? Kurt Warner was the sacrificial lamb for, I want to say, the first 7 games. And then you went to Eli. I don't know I think he was the number 1 overall pick, and he got traded from the Chargers to the Giants. It was weird. The Chargers ended up with Phillip Rivers. But even when Eli got in there, they were not ready to win. They were bad. You could see the young quarterback getting better. They were not winning games. And I think that's what you get here. Similar to the Texans, where you can see the vision. Similar to the Jaguars last year, where you can see the vision. It's just going to take some time. You're building. And I think I keep saying the Saints caught teams at the right time this year. And I think that's what this is. Saints are going to win this game. I have them 21-18, climb to 8-5. After dropping to 6-5, you win 2 games. You feel really good about your playoff positioning after week 14 based on where everyone else is in the division. This 2-win stretch here is massive. This stretch of the season is going to be massive for the Saints in terms of how they navigate it. All right, going on to week 15, and you have the Giants team that inexplicably the Saints could not handle in the 2021 season. I think it's going to happen again. I do. And I think this is going to be one of those emotional letdown games. It's another instance of a quarterback that just does things that the Saints don't handle particularly well. Saquon Barkley is going to keep doing Saquon Barkley things. The Giants have beefed up their offensive line. They spent top 5 picks on their right and left tackle. They brought in a center in the 3rd round this year. As long as they're healthy, the Saints are going to have a hard time getting pressure, and they're going to have a hard time containing Daniel Jones. It's a tough matchup for them. Like, I think people look at the Giants like, oh, okay, the Giants. They're a team that plays in the NFC East, right? They're probably the 3rd best team in the NFC East. But when you play in a division that loaded, you get out of your division, and you're like, man, what a relief to not have to play the Cowboys or the Eagles, right? And I think that helps you in this case. Whereas the Saints, you spend your entire season facing the Bucs and the Panthers and the Falcons, not exactly the top end competition, and then you get into these non-divisional games, and I think you can get caught off guard, and I think that's what's going to happen. You have the Giants winning 28-17, and the Saints falling to 8-6. Week 16, another short week, and we talk about it again. Like, it's tough for a veteran team, especially this late in the season, to have to play on a short week after a really difficult game against the Giants. You have to travel out west. I don't know where the Rams are going to be at this point in the season. I don't know if they're going to hold up. They're very thin. Wait, they're thin in ways that you will only be after you go all in to win a Super Bowl. And that's what happened last year. Matt Stafford got hurt and they fell off a cliff. I don't know how much Matt Stafford has left in the tank. But I do think that this is a game that will be very difficult for the Saints to win. I think we talked about a schedule loss before. I think this is probably a schedule loss. A short week, you have to go out west. That's tough, especially if you already feel like you have the division locked up, which you may not. I don't know. It depends on what the Panthers do, in my opinion, and maybe the Falcons. I think at 8-7, which is what you're going to be after the Rams win 28-14, you're still feeling pretty good because your final 2 weeks, right? And I think week 17 is a gift from the schedule makers. Previously, when Tom Brady was in town, this would have been a brutal way to finish your season. 2 divisional games, one against Tom Brady, a team that you would expect to be competing for the division. In this case, you are facing a openly tanking team from the beginning. Like, they have been openly tanking since prior to the draft when they passed on Will Levis despite not having a quarterback. And now you're in week 17 where they have no interest in winning football games, right? So if you go in there with a pulse, you should win. And I think that's what happens for the Saints here. 28-12, I have them beating the Bucs. That's just a schedule win, right? This is what you want. And at 9-7, I think you are safe in the playoffs in the NFC South, regardless of what happens in week 18. I think you have clinched at this point because you have clinched a winning record. And this is where you have that question, right? This is why I would never bet the over-under on the Saints this year, because you're right there at 9 wins. And I think this is a clean 9 wins. But what happens in week 18? What if you're clinched and you just rest your starters and the Falcons go and win a game, right? What if you're not clinched and the Falcons are basically tanking the way you kind of expect them to be, and you go in there and you just destroy them? And that's kind of where I'm at here. I think you will be playing for seeding. I think you want to get to double-digit wins, and that's what motivates you in this week 18 matchup. Saints win 35-7 because they're sprinting through the line and the Falcons are not, and it gets you to 10 wins. And I wasn't sure where I was going to land coming into this projection in terms of the 9.5 number. I think 10-7 is very much attainable. And if you take care of business in a few more of these games, I could see you getting to 11, 12 wins. Anything short of 9 wins against this schedule is a major disappointment. Not only because you probably would miss the playoffs for a third straight season, but because it doesn't get easier than this. It only gets more difficult. Cam Jordan only gets a year older. Mario Davis only gets a year older. Bryce Young is going to come into his own, right? The Bucs are going to finally get a quarterback. The Falcons, maybe they find a quarterback. I don't know. Either way, this is the season you have to take advantage of it. And that's why, people have been critical of the Saints not kind of tearing it down and rebuilding. And this year would never have been the year you did that. This is the year where you go for it in the NFC South because it's right there for the taking. And so 10 wins, I think, is fair. Is it optimistic? Maybe, but only if you don't believe that they can go on the road for 4 of the first 6 games and get a few wins, right? And I think they can based on who they're playing. But all right, that was the long form breakdown. If you want to read more of what I wrote here, you can go check it out at WLBL.com. I'm going to flash up the scoreboard, the schedule graphic again, so you can get another look at that. But yeah, I think, if you're a Saints fan and you're looking at this trying to think, did we win the schedule release? I think you did. I think this is about as good as you could have hoped for. I would have liked to not see a second Thursday game, because I think that is a disadvantage, but you did avoid an international game, and you're going to have to live with it. A Thursday trip out west is about as uncomfortable as you can get late in the season, but hey, you'll live with it. But all right, let's see. Here's Ramiro Hernandez. He says yes, he disagrees with the Rams winning. I mean, I do too, to an extent. Like I just think that that's a very difficult situation for a team to be in that late in the season. Where the Rams are concerned, it's probably more in the sense of, what are you playing for that late in the season? Are you still in contention? Because if you're not, that could change things. But it's too early in the year for a team to have gone completely in the tank. And I just think that's going to be a tough matchup for the Saints, right? Like, you have to be realistic. And that's one of those games, right? Like, if you think the Saints can maybe get to 11 wins, 12 wins, maybe that is the game that I have incorrect here. But either way, like, I think you can bake in a schedule loss or two and still be comfortable. And that's kind of where I am. Jerry, forever optimistic, has the Saints going 13-4. I can't go that far. It would be great. I would love to see the Saints go 13-4. This is going to be the first season that I'm on the sideline as the sideline reporter for WWL, and I would love nothing more than to get to cover a 13-4 season. It's going to be tough, right? Like, I'm trying to keep this on the reasonable side of the equation. But no, I mean, if Derek Carr comes in and picks up the offense and does everything you hope for Derek Carr, if the, more importantly, if you can stay healthy at key positions, right? Like, if you can keep Michael Thomas on the field, fantastic. And I think that makes things a lot easier for you, right? If Jawan Johnson has a season where you are healthy throughout, if Kendre Miller and Jamal Williams can stay healthy and not have to have you scraping the bottom of the barrel to trying to fight a running back when Alvin Kamara is inevitably suspended, then I think you have a much better chance of getting to 11, 12 wins. 13 is tough. 13, but I don't see this team contending for the top seed in the conference, and that's what you would be doing with 13 wins. But I love optimism, so there you go. Marvelous points out the Saints are 1-2 versus Jared Goff. I point out that, sure, but we all know what happened in one of those games, and if not for that, then the Saints would be 2-1 against Jared Goff, and so that kind of changes things. I do remember that game. The Superdome was so loud that that Jared Goff had to put tape over his ear holes. I also just I do not think that Jared Goff is a good enough quarterback to beat good defenses consistently. You know how the Patriots beat him in the Super Bowl? By showing a defense, and then with 15 seconds left in the play clock, changing that defense, because they became aware of the fact that Sean McVay was calling the plays into his headset and he was running them. Like, there was no adjustments being made. And Sean McVay is an offensive wizard, but the communicator turns off with 15 seconds to go on the play clock. And Jared couldn't handle it in the Super Bowl. And like, I think Jared's fine. He does not scare me as a quarterback. Demetrius James, he needs to help. It needs to be helped to Justin Jefferson's side, or let Alante roam with him. Yeah, I mean, I think the Saints kind of live and die with Marshawn's ability to lock up the top receiver of the other team. And so often that is not an issue. A vast majority of the time, it's not even a question. Justin Jefferson is unique in that I don't know if you can be as physical with him as you'd like to be with some of these top receivers. And I think that kind of clean breakaway he gets in that matchup just doesn't suit Marshawn's game. I could be wrong. Maybe that was a one-off, right? They were in London. Maybe he was jet lagged. Maybe he just didn't have the week he was hoping for We're gonna find out. Maybe with more tape, maybe there's a different result there. I don't think you're gonna see Alante get put on Justin Jefferson. That is not the way the Saints are gonna operate in terms of Marshawn's still that guy. He is still that dude, and it's gonna be on him to get up for that matchup. Yeah, sure, maybe you roll some help over the top, but you're not gonna take Marshawn and throw him on Jordan Addison. You're just not gonna do it. All right. Charles Como Jr. says, just stay healthy, Saints. And yeah, this is what you got to do. It's one of those things where we can do all these predictions we want. If the quarterback gets hurt, everything changes, right? Like if the running backs get hurt, everything changes. If the wide receivers get hurt, everything changes. If both your tackles go down, everything changes. Hopefully they got the bad juju out of their way. Mr. Shocks says, good bit of road games early. Yeah, the one thing I'll say about that, and people are going to make a big deal about it, first off, I would rather have a long stretch of road games early in the season. I think the grind of the NFL makes road games later in the season a little bit more difficult. And also, the Saints have been good on the road, right? It's been the home games that they've had a hard time in. They've actually been better on the road than they've been at home, and it's infuriating when you're paying money to go see a home game. But it is a little confidence inspiring when you do say, okay, can they go on the road and win a game? Because they obviously can. All right, let's see a few more. D. Granger says, we can't look at the schedule and just say we're better than this team or that team, but I do think we're talented and should make the playoffs. Yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, that's all you can do at this point is say, okay, who's the better team? How do we think this game's going to go? There's a lot of variables we can't plan for. But yeah, I mean, this team would be a huge disappointment if they miss the playoffs. And that's why, when you look at kind of the Dennis Allen era as the head coach, I don't know if it can survive missing the playoffs in a season where it is set up for you to win. Like last year, you could at least say, well, you know what? Tom Brady is Tom Brady, and he did Tom Brady things. And while it sucked that we didn't get in there, you can at least be like, who else does that? Like, who else makes that comeback the way he did and really just tears your heart out the way he did? And you can move on from it because it was him. If it was Baker Mayfield, the way it was for the Rams last year, I can't remember who they beat. The Raiders. It was the Raiders. That's different, right? If you can't get it done this year, you're looking just bleak, right? It's just bleak because it doesn't get easier than this. And I've already said this once, but I just don't know how you could survive it. Anyway, all right. Well, that's the schedule release in a nutshell. Again, you are starting against the Titans. You have 4 of your first 6 games on the road. You have road games then against the Colts, the Vikings, the Falcons, and then week 16 and 17 at the Rams, at the Bucks. You have home games against, obviously, week 1 against the Titans, then the Bucks in week 4, Jaguars in week 7, Bears in week 9, week 11 bye, Lions in week 13, Panthers in week 14, Giants in week 15, and then you close out at home against the Falcons. Simple enough. Let's do it. This is Inside Black and Gold. I'm going to wrap it up right there. We're going to have rookie minicamp on Saturday. Well, I take that back. Rookie minicamp is going on today through Saturday. We're going to have availability on Saturday. So I'm going to have a lot of opportunities to talk to some of these rookie players. Going to be very interesting to kind of catch up with the Brian Brzezis of the world. It's going to be interesting, too, to see if the Saints have any of their rookies sign their contracts, because as of right now, I haven't seen any of that reported. They're still listed as unsigned. Maybe rookie minicamp is when you get some of those contracts signed, but we'll find out. Either way, it's going to be very interesting. I'll try to get a good amount of video. I'll post that on the YouTube page. It was very popular last year, so I'll do that again. And if anyone wants to hear from anyone in particular, hit me up on Twitter at Jeff_Nowak. Let me know, and I'll do my best to get a hold of them. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm very much looking forward to this season. I'm very excited about it. I just want to watch good football from the Saints, and I just feel like we haven't in quite a while, but I think it's going to change this year. But all right. Thanks, y'all, for listening. Thanks, y'all, for watching, leaving questions, leaving comments. The Saints 2023 schedule is here, and it looks soft. All right, y'all. Peace.